because I can't really pinpoint exactly how it got started. It all kind of just happened. Earlier, actually, it was 2020, um, where I feel like it all kind of started because my business actually from 2019 was doing well. So I had great projections coming into 2020, knowing that, obviously had a great momentum being built from 2019. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have a great year in 2020. Um, and then boom, this whole thing called COVID happened, where a COVID announcement started happening. And obviously in the beginning, early stage of 2019, it was, there weren't much restrictions getting into now 2020, February and March. Then they came to us with this whole bang as far as, business getting shut down and pretty much the entire economy getting shut down essentially. Now for me, I'm in a very fragile business where one or two bad months can essentially kind of somewhat lead to bankruptcy essentially because the operation cost is so high. So for me, when the entire country gets shut down where I have no other choice but to get shut down, I'm freaking out because my entire life that dedicated to this particular business can go downhill. Um, I've always been a guy that can be strong enough to handle certain things, to handle certain adversities, certain obstacles, certain challenges, because I've gone through a lot in my entire life. But when you've built a business up to 10 years and you finally get to a point where you're doing well, and then something that's completely out of control that you did not see coming happens, now that completely takes it, of course, it takes that away from you in terms of momentum that you've established. It's hard. So for me, I started having a hard time falling asleep. Let's just like March, April, every night when I'm sleeping, I'm somewhat waking up middle of the night, sometimes screaming. I'm having nightmares, just like, having nightmares as far as one day just like losing everything, going back to what I used to have, and pretty much nothing. And that's always been my biggest fear. That's what I started seeing happening with the whole COVID thing, right? And, I've always obviously enjoyed drinking, but I never drank to a point where I just passed out because I only drank to, for the moment, just give me a certain buzz, a certain great feeling, and I go to bed or I enjoy whatever social activity that I'm doing. But, when I started going through that time when I'm having a hard time sleeping, I started finding a way to cope with that. I started finding a way to get sleep because obviously during the day when I had to find a way to come up with a solution with everything that was going on, I was able to function due to lack of sleep that I had, right? And one day I just said, you know what, if I'm drunk to a point where I don't know myself anymore, maybe that's gonna allow me to just fall asleep and just pass out and just wake up the following day well rested. And I tried it one day and boom, that happened. I passed out and I woke up the next day. I'm like, okay, cool. I actually finally got to sleep. Now, that's all what I was pushing for, just get enough sleep so I can function the following day. So that became somehow the direction I started going with because obviously I couldn't find any other way to find my sleeping problem, and drinking became a thing. And I started doing it every single day, and it became a normal thing where if I want to go to sleep, I have to chug at least one bottle of wine before I go to sleep, right? And for me, because I was getting somewhat of a result during the day because I was a little bit more focused now, I started thinking, okay, well, I guess this is okay. It's somewhat helping me, come up with better, fix my current situation. So I'm gonna just keep doing it. I mean, obviously, I'm not that bad, right? Trying to find a way to justify the addiction side of it because obviously, my mind, I'm trying to find a way to accept the fact that this is the only way, that's the only solution to my current problem, right? Kept on going for months, and to a point where initially when I first started, obviously I have two kids and I'm also married as well. In the beginning, they didn't find much of a problem, right? Because obviously they felt like obviously I was going through a lot of stress, so they kind of just allowed me to go through the process. It felt like it was going to be temporarily, but then 6-7 months later, I'm still going through the same thing. And to a point where it started getting even worse because now whenever I started drinking even during the day. So initially started off just being able to drink at night so I can go to sleep, but now I started bringing that habit to during the day. So now I start getting even drunk during the day to a point where even outside of my work, when I get home, I'm super drunk as well, to a point I can't even play with my kids and I can't even be around my family in the right way as I used to before. I'm not that loving as I used to, because that became now my solution to everything, right? Whenever I deal with any level of stress, drinking became my new way to cope with that stress, right? So that's kind of, ultimately what I was going through, and eventually that made my situation even worse, getting into like the July, August of last year, where my situation even got worse. Now, any money that I started making, I started spending that much money in alcohol now. So now I've had this addiction now, which now has increased my operation costs as a whole, right? So it made my situation even worse, to a point where my wife came to me and said, obviously you got a problem, and you got to find help. And I just kept fighting it. And ultimately, she just decided one day, I came back home from work and they were gone. The entire family was just gone. I'm like, I get home, like there's no kids anywhere, the house is quiet. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Went upstairs, all the kids' stuff is all packed. I'm like, is this a prank? Is this a joke? I started calling her. Her phone is off. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I started freaking out. So this is where, and at that moment when I was going through that, I'm intoxicated too. I'm drunk at that point. Obviously, like I said, I'm still drinking, right? So I wasn't fully comprehending what was going on. I wasn't fully able to take it seriously, what was going on. And I passed out, of course, because I was drunk. And I woke up the next day, it was still not there. Okay, are they ever gonna come back again? Like, what's going on here? And at that day, I couldn't focus. Like, drinking wasn't even my mind anymore the following day, because now I'm just like, okay, where the hell is my family? Spent all day calling family members here. So obviously at that moment, she already contacted the right people. She already told them exactly what she was doing. So everyone I was calling, they just gave me cold shoulder, because they're all on the same. They all collaborated together, to essentially send this message to me. And to a point where I became super, I just almost said to forget it. You know what, if my family's gonna be gone, forget it. I'm just gonna start drinking again. So even that wasn't even like a moment where I was gonna be like, you know what, like, okay, if drinking is gonna cause my family to leave, maybe I should stop drinking. Not because I mentally was able to condition my mind to believe that, drinking was the only way to deal with stress. Because now my family was gone and I didn't think they were coming back, I gravitated more toward that again. What ended up happening, actually, alcohol poisoning, and I almost passed out. Thankfully for me that day, one of my buddy realized that he didn't see me at work that day, because I just called the day off. I stayed at home. He tried to reach out to me, he didn't call me. He ended up just coming to my house and see me just passed out on the floor. And he eventually ultimately ended up calling the ambulance and took me to the hospital. And they said, man, if a friend didn't show up, essentially you could have just lost your life and died. So just waking up in the hospital the following day and just knowing how close I was to death, and knowing that that's something that I did upon myself, and also beyond just me being able to die, just the fact that that particular problem that I had also just essentially just cost my family. At that moment, just waking up at the hospital bed was somewhat of a wake-up call. Man, I need help. And crazy enough, like, this hospital screens, sometimes it plays a couple commercials, and there was this commercial that was being played, and it's something with the Smart Clinic, and it started talking about people with addictions and whatnot. It started going through different advertisements as far as how they can help people with different addictions and whatnot. And at that moment, I'm like, I got nothing to lose at this point. I might as well call them and see if they can help me. And thankfully, I made that choice. I gave them a call, and I spoke with a nice receptionist lady named Karen, and she said, you know what, come on in, we're gonna have a consultation, we're gonna sit down with you and figure out ways we can definitely help you. And that was essentially what led me to eventually getting help, because she ultimately, it wasn't her trying to sell me different product, different prices of what how she wasn't trying to make money out of me. Essentially, it was just her. Generally, she felt like she actually cared about me. She actually wanted to help me, and she trying to find every way possible to understand my story, where I was coming from, before giving me any suggestions. And because I felt that care and that love, I was like, you know what, like, I think I'm in the right place. And they ultimately led me to come up with a plan in place that allowed me to get to this point where I'm better. And I haven't touched alcohol, to be honest, for a while, not because I don't want to drink anymore, because there's no reasons to. Once again, I only did it because of level of stress, but I've learned now to understand, like, there's other ways, other healthy way. Like, there's easy way in terms of dealing with stress. Like, I could easily just talk to my kids and have fun with my kids, just talk to my wife, figure out a way collective as a family to deal with this, versus me trying to do it all alone, thinking I was alone in this. So to be honest, like, I'm happy. I have so much energy. I get a chance to, my kids actually love coming around me now, because prior to, before, when I was going through my series of drinking a lot, they were hesitant to come around me because I was also moody, right? So, just being able to go to a Smart Clinic where they gave me a program in place that I followed, it allowed me to get to the point where I was able to get my family back, because I started just following these routines, right? And I also learned, like, obviously I have people that care about me, like my family, my kids, and people that I actually truly respect, people that I truly love, and I had to get them involved in my life. I couldn't separate my, whatever I was going through versus them. It was all together. Whatever I was going through, we need to go through it together as a family. And that's one thing that Smart Clinic really taught me. And they were able to really come to that conclusion for me, because they actually took the time to get to know me as a person, who I am. And they took the time to understand my situation without prejudging me and whatnot. Like I said, they really genuinely care. And, now it's a point where, instead of me just going alone to these sessions, my family come along. When we talk about it together, they're all involved in this entire process of me getting better. And it's beyond just, obviously, the stress levels. It's about, beyond just what I was going through with COVID, even like future issues, because obviously as a human, we're always going to be going through ups and downs. We don't know what's going to come in the next 10 years, but just being able to understand like whatever you're going to go through, you're not alone. You got people like my beautiful kids who looks up to me to be a great example setter, who needs me to show them a way to be able to, deal with life without having to, find coping mechanism that's actually killing you, that's actually hurting you. So being able to understand that I have that responsibility for my kids is just a motivation factor for me to just keep following everything the Smart Clinic has told me to do, because once again, I don't want to ever come back home again and my kids are gone. So I can say for anybody out there who feels like, there's no help out there, you feel like you're alone and you're afraid to be judged, because if by making a couple phone calls of different centers that can help you, I can tell you this much. You just have to do your own research, and I can say I did my own research, and Smart Clinic did actually help me, because once again, the biggest thing that separates them versus everybody is they actually truly care and actually listen to you. And it's about you, and it's all they care about. It's about making you better. All right, so I would highly recommend it to anybody that's gone through what I've gone through as well. Believe me, Smart Clinic listened.